Welcome to Prepper Talk Radio. We're back better than ever. This is the show about survival shenanigans and a lot of wisdom, hopefully. As usual, I'm Scott Stallings here with Paris Clough and Shane Coles, the prepared guy. Welcome back, guys. How's your week been?
Good to be here. Busy week.
It's awesome. Yeah, been very busy, but good to be back.
Very good to be back. It's time to start growing. Get the gardens out there, all you people. Pay attention to your zones, and we're going to talk more about that in the next few weeks. But that's a good skill to get ready for. But before we go too far, I want to introduce our sponsor today. The sponsor of the show today is Be Prepared Expo 2022. Now, those of you who know us, you know we love all things preparedness. We actually ran our own preparedness expo, and that's how we met. You heard it last week. I'm not going to go over it again. And there's a new dog in town, and we're super excited for him because his goal is to actually get more people prepared. Bigger, if possible, hopefully, than PrepperCon. So Be Prepared Expo, we're going to have Chris, the founder of Be Prepared Expo, on with us next week for an interview. But go to bepreparedexpo.com. You can buy tickets. Early bird are $8. Tickets at the door are $10. All the pricing's on the website. There's some huge giveaways. Just to give you an idea, you can actually get, this is crazy. at the show, they're going to be giving every hour, they're going to be giving something else away, right? Have you guys seen these yet?
Yeah, I think so. The giveaways?
Yeah, a 1973 Kaiser M35, which is a 6.5. Mm-hmm. Right? A 22 to 24 foot pull trailer. They've got air filtration systems, so it removes all the different types of contaminations in your home. Nutritech is the one giving that away. They've also got the Caraco whole house water filtration system, among many other things, including Ova Easy, and my personal favorite, 100 ounces of silver.
Oh,
that
that's
awesome.
It's a good gift, good price.
I don't quite have 100 ounces of silver yet, unlike you two. I had, but like all good things, like all good things, we need to be prepared, right? We need to make sure we're getting the right things. And I used part of my preparedness stuff to get through hard times. In fact, that was my kind of plan from the beginning. Buy the silver as a hedge against inflation, buy the silver as something to use when things get worse. And when things got worse, we used it. And it made the hugest difference for my family. And then I started stockpiling again. Same thing with food, right? We use it when we need it and we replenish it. So that's kind of the gist of what I want to get into about that. But I mean, there's some amazing things you can get. Check out the website, check out all the socials. Be Prepared Expo. They're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I mean, YouTube. Hop on it, give them a follow. We've got more content coming with them, and we're super excited. We're going to be there. So if you're in Utah or the surrounding areas, make sure you get out. We'll be in booth 918, and we would love to see you, love to meet you, love to help you get better prepared. So
April 23rd, 22nd, 23rd.
Yes.
Friday, Saturday at this, I would say Southtown Expo, but it's a Mountain America Expo Center
in right?
Sandy.
They changed the name. And you're like,
yes.
Wait, what is this thing?
That's where we have PrepperCon as well.
Mountain America Expo Center in Sandy, Utah. So 22nd and 23rd, it's going to be fun. It opens at, I want to say 11 o'clock on Wednesday or 12 o'clock.
On Friday.
On Friday. 12 o'clock on Friday till 6 p.m. and then 9 to 6 on Saturday. So come on out.
Come say hi.
Yeah, love to meet you.
So this week we are delving back into the world of starting points, skills, mindset, things you want to think of first. Last week we got into kind of the basic skills. We also got into the basic mindset, fight or flight, the 5-second rule, which I think is one of the best little launch pads to get going on any kind of dare I say, adventure / shenanigans / apocalypse.
Emergencies.
Thank you. That's a much better response. But before I ramble on too long, I think we need to jump in and really talk about why is it that prepping is making a huge resurgence right now? Like, why do you think that is, Paris?
I think that people are seeing what's going on in the world, going on in the news, and they're realizing, you know what, some things can happen. Another thing I've heard a lot of people, I had actually two people reach out to me this last week. One guy was like, "Hey, Paris, I'm finally in a place where I feel like I can afford to get some preps done. So what do you do? What do you recommend? How do you recommend I start?" And I was like, "Hey, interestingly enough, we just did a podcast on that." Another guy called me up and he's like, "Hey, I've been seeing these ads on Facebook for the Mira face masks, the gas masks." And he's like, "Should I get some?" I'm like, "Man, sure, if you have, but make sure you get your other stuff first." I said, "Do you have your food storage? Do you have your water storage? Do you have, some stockpiles of the different things that you have? Don't go crazy. All that stuff is cool, but I think you got to get your basics first. And so once you have your basics down, then you can get that cool stuff and you can save up for that cool stuff." So just having conversations with some people this last week, a lot of people realized that, with the Rona that just came through, there was a lot of people that had some shortages in stores. People are realizing that I remember the run on the toilet paper, and I was like, well, I don't mind. I got 3 months of toilet paper in my closet right here. So didn't matter to me. So there's just a lot of things I think going on in the world right now, especially as we're seeing in the news, gas prices rising, inflation all through the roof. Just a lot of people realizing, you know what, we need to have some stockpiles and some storage because we don't know what's going to come. And there's a lot of that uncertainty. And with uncertainty comes a genuine desire to get back to that homeostasis, that point of certainty. And I think people will feel that, are feeling that desire to get prepared, get anchored back in and be more self-reliant. And because they're realizing nobody's going to come save us. Nobody's going to take care of us. We need to take care of ourselves. And I feel like that's just a general mood right now. I don't know if anybody else feels that way too, but I feel like that's my general take on it.
My thoughts are that, what came to mind is I like to watch these apocalyptic movies, right? I mean, who doesn't? What kind of prepper doesn't? And, one in particular, they realized at the last possible moment that they may not survive. You may not make it. And that's only the point when they wake up, right? That's the point when it turns the other way. And I'm just hoping that most people will see what's going on. The general population they don't understand what's going on. They really don't. And perhaps I'm a little too awake, but they don't know what they don't know. And until we come to that tipping point, people aren't really going to open their eyes until they see something that really directly affects them. And right now, the things that are starting to affect people are the gas prices or the food prices. Those are the things that are the most obvious, right? Yeah. And so hopefully people are seeing those and open their eyes like, hey, what's going on? Hopefully, like we spoke and talked in our last episode, talking about critical thinking, trying to think for yourselves. Don't just, there's two different sides. Well, there's multiple sides to every story, especially we're talking about what's going on with Ukraine and Russia. There's more than two sides on that story. So critical thinking and then feeling that tipping point, like I'm a little scared. There's a little fear here. And we don't want to create that fear.
Fear's an amazing motivator, right? When we woke up, like my wife and I woke up at different times. Like I've been doing this for a long time. But I've been learning more and more every day and going, oh, that's going on behind the scenes, right? But that fear that it's either going to make you fight or flight, right? Fight, flight, and
or freeze.
And freeze. And a lot of people will flight or freeze. That fighting side, in this case, it's actually doing something. It's putting together a plan of action, which we talked about last week. We've got up on the website now, we've got our basic 96-hour kit recommendations and an expansion pack that we've put together ourselves. Like, this is not, hey, go buy this right now. This is focus on the basic kit first, then expand into the second kit. Just like if you don't have your food storage, get your week's worth. Start building up to that. Then worry about 2 weeks. Then worry about 3 weeks. It's not, and it's also not your first priority. Everyone has containers in their home they can put water in first, right? But you have a really good first aid kit. And I'm not talking a little plastic clamshell you bought at the grocery store last time you were there that's only got Band-Aids in it. I'm talking you need a trauma kit. And those are going to cost $50 to $300 depending on what you're going for. That, and then learn how to use it. getting back to everything, it's understanding, okay, what am I going to have to work with first? What do I need to worry about most? And looking at where your gaps are and then starting to fill those in prioritized on what's the most important, going back to the emergency rule of three or survival rule of three. So check out the YouTube, because we just dropped some different videos that are kind of outlining each of those from the podcast last week, but in short. So if you've got just a short burst, you can actually get into it. And we think you'll really enjoy it. I mean, I did. I actually listened to all of them yesterday and today. So get back in there, guys, and let us know. We've got some great content in the group chat. People are asking questions. We're responding. We're going to use that for content. And it's just a nice flow to be able to keep the conversation going between episodes.
I've been really surprised how many people have started to just randomly join our Facebook group. It's been really cool to see that. Our YouTube channel is growing really quickly. And so come and get involved and join the community. One of the things we love about the group is that we want to interact with people. We want to see what you're doing to prepare, what we're doing to prepare, and we all can grow together. We can all edify each other. One of the things I know kind of along the lines, a little bit more into the skill sets of things, but one of the things I heard this last, I was watching a video, in fact, on YouTube today myself. And if you have, for example, a bunch of gear, you can give somebody who has the skill sets to really survive in their mind. They have the mindset, they have the skill sets to survive. You can give them all the best gear, and it's just going to make it that much easier. But if they lost all the gear, if they had no gear, maybe just a pocket knife, maybe just a compass or something in their pockets, like the pocket dump we talked about. If you could survive with just that, that's where the real survival skills comes in. Because that most people, even with a ton of cool gear, if their mindset's not right, they're going to freeze up. They're going to get scared. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to panic. They're going to do things wrong. But it's that skill set, that understanding. If you have a cut on your leg and you know how to address it, you're going to survive a lot longer than the guy who has no idea, and that wound just stays open, for example. I mean, it really boils down to that when you have the skill sets, you can use whatever equipment is around you and you can still survive. But if you don't have the skill sets, it doesn't matter what equipment is around you. You may or may not survive.
There was a lady in the news just this last month here in Murray, Utah. She was at Costco, of all places, walking down the aisle, or not the aisle, but the parking area, would walk into her car, and poor little old guy, instead of hitting the brake, accidentally hit the gas and ran into her. And he hit her so hard, one of her legs, this is graphic, was completely ripped off. The other one was destroyed. And her husband is a trauma surgeon at the IHC hospital, which is right across the street. It's right there. So this is like, oh my gosh, this actually just happened. And she was on the phone with him. Her phone goes flying. The manager of Costco picks up the phone and comes running over. And there's already other people helping and working on her. A guy that was first on the scene put tourniquets on both legs, like immediately. And that saved her life. That kept her alive. She would have bled out. And her husband is on the phone with the guy that works there, the manager, and comes running down. And by the time he gets there, he's like, I didn't think she'd be alive by the time I got here. He's like, you guys just saved her life. And so then she went into surgery after surgery, and she had to have her other leg amputated. So now she's a double amputee. But she survived. Why? Because people were there that knew what to do. And they not just knew what to do. They didn't freeze. They fought. They got in and they helped. And it gets me excited because that's why we do this, right? We each have different skill sets and things we're good at, but we do this to help. We're the helpful preppers. We want to help everybody get better prepared, exercising the skills that you have and expand into the areas that you're scared of, right? If you're really worried about first aid, you need to get really good at it. If you're really worried about shelter, you need to get really good at it. It's not just a one and done thing. Like, just keep growing and just expand that circle or that radius of knowledge that you have, and then continually practice those.
Well, Scott, you might remember my story. When I was a teenager, loved to go, climbing up in the canyon, and a friend and I were coming down from climbing, and we heard some brakes screeching and a crash, and we went running down the canyon, and a couple of guys obviously were drunk. They went off the road, and they both went through the hood, and they're bleeding and everything. And I just stood there frozen. I had no idea what to do whatsoever. So what did I do at my earliest convenience? I went and got my EMT certification.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully those, I don't want to say you hopefully you have those kinds of experiences in your life, because I hope you don't. I've had more than a few that are definitely a little traumatic, but call it exposure therapy, right? Something like
Right.
that. If you have a fear of some sort, or a lack of knowledge, immerse yourself into that, and then you won't be so afraid of that. So I went and got my EMT, and I still need to learn and keep up on that, right? But it's I would like to think that I would like your example there, Scott, that I would jump in with my tourniquets, which I have at the ready. I do have some of the ready. You know, I got those rats tourniquets
I was just going to say,
ready.
you got your rats on you, right?
Yeah, I got my rats tourniquets, and
That's awesome.
I hope my brain would be that clear to where I could make those jump decisions.
Absolutely. I think going back on the skills, like it's the hard experiences that teach you the most. It's funny because like I've been talking about this on our TikTok. Well, and just the few comments that I made in the last 48 hours, 2 of them went viral, and not as good as that virus thing that was going around, but they went pretty dang viral, and we had about 20 times growth on that platform. And the questions were about these types of things. Where do I start? What do I need to focus on? And people started sharing stories about living in Texas when the hurricanes hit and power was out for 3 weeks, you know, and they're like 72-hour kit's not long enough. 96-hour kit is good when you've got to leave and go somewhere else. But they're like, since that event, like we've all gotten power supply, generators, and just in case, we have them up on tables in our garage, not on the ground.
Because of
The
flooding.
water level comes high. I'm like, that's brilliant, right? And they've got wires and they've got different things they've set up, but they've got water, they've got food, and it's all off the ground. You know, we talked about if you live in humid climates, like, do you store your canned goods in the basement? Most likely not, because a lot of times it's going to rust. You've got to have a really well sealed storage room for that. You know, and those are the types of things in that area. You got to rotate them faster, because if it's going to rust, it's going to rust. We're lucky here in Utah and in the drier climates, I can put anything I want in the basement and it's good, right? It's cooler, it stores, there's no humidity, it's fantastic. But yeah, you've got to have the dehumidifier or a system to keep those cans safe. And that's also why I like bottling, because it's less prone to rust on those lids. So you've got some other options, but I mean, there's just so many good things people are asking, and the dialogue just growing and growing. You know, where do you start if you live in an apartment, right? Everything starts with the simplest, most basic thing is the emergency rule of 3. You know?
Here, how about this one? What happens when your daughter needs to move back in, and you have all your food storage in that one room, and you have to take it out and put it somewhere else, completely outside of the house in a storage unit, and completely wrecks your plans? What do you do there?
You've got a shed, right?
I have 2 sheds, and I'm building a Quonset, and
one of them can be a she shed for her.
They're already full.
Get your room back. Let her live in the she shed.
They're already
priorities.
Full. Yeah, exactly. And the garage is full, and it's anyway. So that's my life right now.
Oh man, that's tough. You know, our storage got run over through family. Like, we've got other family storage in our storage rooms, and so like we've got like home goods. Like, I got 30 portraits and paintings and wall art stacked against the wall over here, plus bins and bins and bins of clothes for kids. But like in the other room, I've got bins and bins and bins of stuff for us. Like, and it's not something it just happened overnight, right? Start with the small stuff. Get set up. Get your water. Get your hygiene kits. Get your really good first aid kit. You're going to hear a lot of the terms like FAC, you know, first aid kit. You'll hear IFAC, individual first aid kit, right? You'll hear trauma kit. These are all different types of first aid kits. Surgical kit, sewing kits. Like, there's so many different things you can get, but get it and learn how to use it. Get familiar with everything you have. Otherwise, it's useless. It's paperweight. But I mean, get things like this. I love this. This is, I don't know if you guys will be able to see this. This is liquid IV, right? I drink caffeinated beverages, and this one is a caffeinated type energy multiplier, and I can put it in with the water that I filter in my water bottles. right? Caffeine pills, put those in your emergency kits, right? Because you may lose track of being able to get your Diet Coke or whatever, right? Personal favorite, always get antacids, always get your anti-diarrheal and your laxatives. Like, you need both of those.
I noticed you had those on that 96-hour kit. I'm wondering, I was going to ask you, is there something specific there, Scott, that
There is. Well, okay, a lot of the places that recommend food for your kit, for the bag at least, they give you like these sodium blocks, right? Or these calorie blocks, or you know, you can get your Mountain House.
Survival
it's really
rations,
good because you just add water to it, but it's very high in sodium. So if you're not used to that level of sodium, you might get plugged, or you might have other problems, right?
Especially people with lactose intolerance or celiac disease, stuff like that. I mean, they're going to get, they're already having, intestinal problems with the regular food. If they don't have something in their storage or in their kit, like that's one of the things my wife just mentioned the other day. She's like, our daughter's starting to have some things with her stomach, and we're not sure what it is yet. We're going to get a food kit and, an allergy kit and all that stuff soon. But shoot, if she doesn't have some kind of helpful probiotic or some kind of something like that in the kit, it's not going to help. She's not going to make it.
So
additional
you take
planning
your medication,
required.
whatever medication you need, plus the life-altering situation stuff, and you put that in your kit. You put that in your 96-hour kit. For each person, they've got their bag and they've got their meds. They've got what they need. Get it in there. Like, I've got prescriptions. Guess where my prescriptions are? I've got 4 days of prescriptions in my bag, and then I rotate them out. My wife, I don't even know how many prescriptions she's got, but they're all in her bag, and we rotate them out. And there's companies now, and I'll track it down, but there's a company that you can actually take, and all the medications you need right now, they'll actually, you
send
can
you
buy
an
them on their
emergency
website,
supply.
and they'll send you the whole system.
Yeah.
And basically, when you get a new prescription, you put it in the back of that pack and pull out the one they sent you. And so that now you're rotating your year supply of medications, because they're not going to go bad in a year. They may have an expiration date, but that's just they don't want you to refill it. They don't want you to keep using it past that. They want you to buy more so that you always have a need for their medications, right? There's so many. I won't go any further into that because I could get into a weird conversation. But
and that was one of the
what you
comments we had, I think, on one of our posts. A question, someone asking about antibiotics, medications, and such. And what do we do? It's a pretty long. I've got it right here. It's a pretty long inquiry. There's a question about something maybe we should discuss. And first of all, we're not doctors. Second of all, we're not doctors. And I'm not going to give recommendations, right? But these other definitely get online. There's resources. I think one of them is Jace Medical. I actually ordered myself a supply of emergency antibiotics for the family on that. But there's a lot of alternatives, and that's where I think we could actually give a little bit of assistance in the alternatives other than actual medicine, right? When definitely going to shy away from giving any recommendations that way for medicine or advice.
Exactly.
Not doctors.
We're not doctors, and we're not paid actors pretending to be doctors. So we will not give medical advice.
That's right.
But we can provide links on our social media sites and our emails. But the links will do no good if you're not a member of our group, if you're not liking our pages, if you're not subscribed to our email. So go to our website and get that done. I wanted to circle back for real quick. A lot of communities, cities have what's called the CERT program, which is a community emergency response team. I think that's what it's CERT. You can join. I did CERT back when I lived in California. I joined the CERT team in my local city. They actually have a lot of great training. It's all for free usually. The fire department comes in, the paramedics come in. They have like real legit people coming in, teaching you, training you how to respond. In fact, it was fun. We did what do you call it when you practice?
Like a role play?
Yeah, they have a
scenario at the very end.
Yeah, they have a fake building, and they have all these like an earthquake happened, and they have tables and chairs all over the place, and you got to find the guy and drag him out and making sure he's safe, and you got to mark the room, you clear the room, and it was a fun thing, to be able to do that and practice that and have some real hands-on experience, because nothing is real until it's real in front of you. We can talk and we can read and we can pontificate about all this stuff, but until you have that emergency, like my brother, he's a prepper. He lived in Texas. He's pretty good at stuff and he knows what he's doing. And he wasn't really taken back by the problems that they had, but there were some things he learned. There were some things he's like, hey, I didn't think of that. I should have had that. There's some things that even he was able to learn going through that whole thing in Texas. Going back to what Scott was talking about earlier about where to put stuff, and Shane too. Back in my house, and before I moved to this house in Utah, where I have tons of room and I love it. I just absolutely love my new house. I have rooms for my food. Like I have a whole rooms for food storage and gear and stuff. And I just like, oh, I love this place. But back home, I had to clear out closets. I don't know if you guys follow the minimalists, but I like those guys. Those guys have some really great wisdom. And one of the things, I'm not sure if it was the minimalists or one of the other people that are in the minimalist movement, but one of the things that they said was the best way to organize your stuff is to get rid of it. And I was like, I didn't need 15 extra sheets and pillowcases and whatever. So I got rid of some of that stuff and it freed up whole shelves worth of closet space. And that's where I stuffed all my food storage. I literally had people come into my house when I did like tour. I would do like a food prepper, emergency preparedness because every September they have the emergency preparedness. It's National Emergency Preparedness Month. So I would have, people in my church come over and do a tour of my house. And I'd say, guess where my food is, and they'd be like, where, all the typical places. I'm like, this closet and that closet under this bed. Like it was all over. And they're like, wow, this is so cool. You found places to put it. I'm like, you just got to get creative. And so, you can find places to put stuff and you can find places to have your house filled with the right stuff. You just got to get creative. And sometimes you got to get rid of those extra sheets and pillowcases you really don't need.
One of the things I struggle with is, there's a saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? If you have your food storage in your basement, there's an earthquake and your house collapses, well, how are you going to get to it, right? If you have a safe, and that's where you keep everything valuable, it's more prone to getting broken into, or it's more vulnerable, right? So like you're saying there, Paris, is that you have your items, your stuff kind of scattered around. And I'm sure for you, Scott, and your wife, it's probably drives a little crazy in that everything's not in order in its own bin in one place, inventoried, and you know exactly where everything's at. Because for me, this is the same. If I don't know exactly where everything's at, I lose it. And then I buy something else, buy it again, and then I have more than one, which, two is one and one is none. So the thing about stuff is there's the minimalist way to go, which I'm still questioning, because you got to have stuff. You got to have stuff. If you're by yourself, okay, you can probably get away with less stuff. Right. But definitely a balancing act, I tell you. Again, with my daughter moving back in, let's get rid of stuff. Stuff's going out the door. We don't have room for this. I don't want to have to spend money on a storage room when I've got two on the side of the house and I'm building a Kwanzaa hut. And yet I'm still renting a storage. Anyway, that's my life.
Well, it's like those tools. Like you see a multi-tool and it's like, oh yeah, everything you need, but it might not be the best tool to have. Like if something has multiple purposes, great. If something was made to sell and to try to look sexy in a survival guide somewhere, and it's not practical, it's not something you're going to use all the time, like just because it has the extra features doesn't mean you need to buy it. Right? It's best to get less and be organized and know what you're working with, right? I carry a very simple pocket knife. I don't carry a multi-tool, but I have tools in my car. I have tools in my house. So if I go anywhere, it's with my car. I've got tools, right? I've got water filters in the car. I've got water filters in my house. I've got a first aid kit in the car. I've got tons of first aid kits in my house. Like we have some weird stuff. Like we have, I think 27 obstetric kits. That's birthing kits. So my wife, being the sweetheart she is like, what if women have to give birth during like a major issue and there's nothing there to help and to clean up and to take care of everything? Let's buy these because we have money now. Let's buy them. We had all the stuff we needed for ourselves. At the time, we're like, what can we do? What kind of charities can we get involved in? And she's like, let's get stuff that our community might need. And I'm like, that's actually brilliant.
Yeah.
27. I don't know if there's going to be, we've got some young families that just moved in across the street. They've got one little kid and they're going to have more, but at the time I'm like, everyone around us was elderly. I'm like, we need walkers and wheelchairs. I'm like, not obstetric kits. But now I'm like, okay, there's wisdom in that.
Yeah.
So if you have your stuff taken care of, now start thinking of other people, right? That's what first aid's for. How often can you do first aid on yourself, especially in a traumatic situation? That most of that training is to help somebody else. So if there's only one person in your family that has that training, get everybody else trained. You know, if only one person has a water filter and they get lost from the pack, from the group, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So yeah, it's just so funny. Like get what you need first. Start with the simple stuff, expound off that, and grow. And I mean, and don't be afraid to really challenge yourself. Vulnerability moment here. Like I've let myself go physically. This has not always been this beautiful and so svelte. 300 plus pounds. If you're outside of your weight range where you should be, you need to be getting into an exercise program. I started 3 weeks ago. I'm still going every day. It is not easy, but it is part of my preparedness plan that I'd abandoned. I bailed on, and that's okay. Everyone just has to start back up. And if you've never been started into preparedness and now you're trying to, that's okay too. Get as far as you can with what you can as you can. Like feel a little pressure to get going, but don't freak out.
I need to step back and make a comment about the stuff part. One thing that's I've realized recently, because I am my ward emergency preparedness counselor. No, it's a specialist. There we go. And one thing I realized is, and when you go backpacking, right? You got a small group. Not everybody needs a water filter. Not everybody needs a stove. Not everybody needs certain things. So you want to pack light. So the same principle I think applies to preparedness for your family as well as your community. Not everybody needs to be an EMT. Not everybody needs to be a nurse. Not everybody needs to have all the stuff that this guy wants to have, right? For me, I have some kind of, I don't want to call it obsession. I just need to have this stuff I feel I need. And maybe it's inspiration, whatever you want to call it. I just got a dentist kit. How am I going to practice that, Paris?
Right.
I mean, it has full-on extractors, because most emergency dental is going to be extraction.
You got kids, right?
Tools. I've got kids. I got neighbors.
Practice on them. Get over here, kid.
I know my wife would love to, and so she was okay with me getting the kit for that reason. But what I'm just saying is I guess we can keep it more simplistic, right? Mm-hmm. It can be more minimal in like what you're saying, Scott. Water, shelter, water, food, survival rules of 3. Focus on that. Just go there. So, shelter, water, food. And then the rest will either come naturally, or someone like me or your neighbor or someone else will have those other things you need. Especially if you have a community, you can start to connect with others. Oh yeah, I've got this. I got a water pump over here. I've got, a tractor or a tiller. We can till each other's, those types of things. So mm-hmm. I think we were putting maybe a little too much emphasis on getting the stuff. But yeah, like you're saying, Paris, the skills are definitely more important. And then you got to have some tools, right? You got to have some stuff. Mm-hmm. You got to, I know, like Scott, we were talking about expanding the 96-hour list. What do we expand that to? You got your basics, very basics, and then expand that to number 4 on my list of that survival rules of 3, which it doesn't really fit, but it's safety, right? Safety means security. Keeping yourself safe, your family safe, and that includes home security, that includes personal safety, your firearms, and so forth. So you can go much deeper, but I think at that point it gets very personal. And who am I to say, well, you need to do this, you should get this, and you should get that. I've really stepped back away from that, because I noticed I've been really heavy. You should get this gun. You should get this specific thing. This should be, because I've done all my research and I know what I like, and I just know you're going to love it too. But I've really stepped back from that. I said, that doesn't make a lot of sense. That's just my obsessions,
Yeah, that's like the eye doctor that takes his glasses off and said, "Hey, these glasses have worked great for me. You should wear them." Well, no, that doesn't work for me. I had a friend. So you remember my story where I shared with you that I told God, if I make this much money, then I'll buy that and use that money to buy these kits for my family. I was all over these lists, these checklists, and I took 3 or 4 of them and I compiled all the things that I thought, were the best of each and made one big list of my own. And I bought all this stuff, and I ended up having a friend who was ex-military. He says, I've been in countries I can't pronounce and can't tell you where, that even exists, kind of a thing. And I was like, all right. So he looked at my gear and he's like, you got way too much stuff. Like, get this. You don't need that. You don't need this. He's like throwing stuff out of my bag. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing? I paid money for that. And he's like, you don't need any of this. He's like, he like pulled out this little fanny pack pretty much. I mean, it was a little bigger. And he says, this is what I take. I'm like, that's how, well, yeah, you're one guy. I mean, I got 5 kids and everything else. So I got to, you still do have to cater to what your individual needs are. But at the end of the day, you're right. It's not, you don't need, it's more like survival or glamping, survival with the glamorous things, So it's true.
Yeah, it's been my experience that those who really get into the survivalism of it go more and more simple. I got a good buddy, and all he carries around is a razor knife. That's pretty much it, and that's all he needs. And very minimal.
But why? Why is that all he needs though? You got to point out why.
No, and because he knows, he has so much in his head, he knows what to do with the things around him that he can find, that he can source in the wilderness. He's definitely more of a wilderness survivalist rather than an urban survivalist or anything like that. But and like your story, Parrish, is, and I have another simple story that came to my mind as well. On a backpacking trip, one of the dads came along, right, with us, a dad hiking trip, right? And this dad, his pack had to be 50 plus pounds. He had a mallet swinging off there. He had a Rambo knife hanging on the side of there. He brought his own huge tarp, right? He was absolutely overloaded with things he did not need, that he could have improvised, right? Use a rock to pound in your tent stake. You don't need to bring a mallet, right? You don't need to bring a Rambo knife. You bring a small knife to do whatever purpose. Anyway, you don't know what you don't know. I guess that's what I'm getting to. And he
that's
felt,
true.
Man, I got to have the thickest tarp and a 4-man tent just for myself. And that's a pretty ridiculous, but it is a true example, actually real example of in my experience. But that goes to the point of using the stuff. Once you start to use the stuff you get, you realize what you really do and don't need. And you kind of start to, I may not need this as much as I thought I did. What were you going to say, Scott?
Well, I was going to say this all kind of bleeds together into a quote I heard a long time ago, and it's kind of become a funny thing. It's like, when you get to a certain age as a man, you've got 2 options. You either get really, really good at history and you study history, or you get into craft brewing, right? That's what I hear for the most of the world. Now, we don't drink, and so I'm like, we get into history, or we get into preparedness. And I guess that's become kind of our hobby, right? A hobby that helps us live, a hobby that helps us survive. And it's funny because, there is such thing as too much gear, right? Especially if it's at the risk of something else that you need more, that's higher on the priority list. If you can get away with less stuff, go for it. If you live in an environment where it's rich in resources, edibles, and you know what they are. But if you don't know what they are and you go into a survival situation, you're going to eat something that might kill you, right? So make sure you're educating. And that's the biggest thing, is because you don't know what you don't know until you start trying it. And when you get into this, it's fun because, I used preparedness when I was a scoutmaster all the time. I was teaching the kids stuff all the time, building shelters, showing them how to tie ropes. And there's so many different skills you can use. And it's just, it's not like I can only go one way, right? There's the urban preppers. There's the rural preppers, right? There's the wilderness survivalist style preppers. There's the I don't tell anybody about anything, like operational secrecy, OPSEC preppers, right? There's so many different ways you can be a preparedness individual, right? There's the homesteading. I can just go on and on and on and on.
It's funny. I was reading.
See eye to eye, but we all have a similar drive and a similar purpose and passion behind getting prepared. We just like to do it in different ways, and that's okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was reading in a group that was about survival preppers. This is another Facebook group, because I was looking around trying to see what's out there. And this lady said, so can somebody share with me kind of what their bug out area is like? What does the shelter look like? What is the bug out area? And you should have seen the comments. The comments are like, I'm not telling. You'll have to find me. It's like, it just went to what you were saying, is that some of these guys are like, I'm not saying anything. I'm totally shutting down. I'm just here. I'm the gray man. And gray,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with being a gray man. I think that's the coolest. We might talk about that in future episodes, but
Yeah.
being a gray man to me is awesome. That's kind of where I've been in what I love actually is doing that. But it was just funny to see her really desire to know, like, hey, how do I build a shelter? How do I, when I do go somewhere, how do I set it up? And where would I go to set it up? And so many comments were like, we're not telling, you'll have to figure this out. If you can find us, we'll tell you, kind of stuff. And I was just like, dang, these guys are hardcore.
Yeah, and I think if you've listened to us in the past, I think you'll will have heard me say this, and I'll continue to say it, and I continue to believe it more and more, is that look to the past to prepare for the future. And what I mean by that is our future is going to change, and I think it's going to go in reverse, in that we'll live more like our ancestors did. So that leans to simplicity, I think, right there. And we can also, of course, learn from history, looking to our past to prepare for the future as well. So not getting too deep into those weeds, but that's something that I pretty much live by.
Awesome. Well, just a reminder, guys, we are brought to you this week by the Be Prepared Expo 2022. So go over to bepreparedexpo.com, learn more about it. Tickets are on sale now. Make sure you follow them on all the social media, and make sure you follow all of our channels because we are promoting it already on there. So you can see that information. And why are we doing this? Because we're going to be there, and it's going to be fun. Like, prepping is fun and it's exciting. And yeah, there's some weird stuff, but dude, what doesn't have weird stuff?
Seriously.
Right? This is the kind of cool weird too.
Weird rules the world, man. Although that may not be the best thing to say.
It kind of does though. But the fun thing is like you go down the path of preparedness, and you wind up having a better relationship with people as a result. It's hard because you can't just be selfish in preparedness, especially as a father and as a husband. We think of our wives and our children, and then once they're taken care of, then you start thinking of other people's, their families, because they've got children. You're like, what can we do? How can we help? And so that's why we expose ourselves on this channel or share what we're doing, because it might help you, right? And no matter where you're coming from and what you're doing, it's all about helping other people. Yeah, you don't have to tell them what you have. Like, all my guns, I have a ton of guns that I don't have access to anymore because a boating accident, guys. It's tragic. But I wish I had them all still.
You'll have to watch our YouTube channel or our video episodes to see what Scott was doing there. For those of you who are listening only, you might want to go check out what minute 43-ish or 44-ish on our YouTube channel.
I think most preppers understand what Scott's saying there.
Yeah,
exactly.
The boating accidents. Those are, I mean, shoot.
So many. They happen so often. I was in a major boating accident just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
dang,
right?
I'm so sorry.
It was weird. Like, I went duck hunting with all my guns and fishing at the same time, and it was a bad idea. All of it on the boat. It was just not a good idea. So
it's gone.
Yeah. Speaking of
That's
bad
sad.
ideas, though, not being prepared, not getting into preparedness is a bad idea. So if you guys are listening, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Make sure you tell us what you want, what you have questions on. We're really active on all of our social platforms to try to help as many people as we can and introduce you to people who are experts in different ways to help you be better prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know, Paris, you had mentioned in our conversation before the show, what I think would be perfect to end with, Old Testament story.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, because it's powerful. As it hit me, one of my goals this year is to read the Old Testament cover to cover. And I'm in somewhere in the middle of Numbers right now. And I just was reading about how the people of Israel, as they were wandering through the wilderness as they just come out of Egypt, and they just come from this oppression that they've had for years. They were under the rule of the Egyptians, and they were slaves for hundreds of years, and they were just finally in this opportunity to be free and to get their own land and be in their own place and be sovereign and be, the people that God wants us all to be, is just have liberty and freedoms. And, Moses they finally get to the kind of the promised land area, and Moses sends 12 men into the land to check it out and see what's there, and if they can have an inheritance there and have that to be their land and their promised land, so to speak. And 10 people come back scared to death. No, we can't go. They're giants there. They're huge. They have all these things that they would kill us. We can't do it. We're just poor me. They were just victims, if you will. But there was 2, Caleb and Joshua, I believe, that were like, you know what? No, we can do this. God is behind us. God is with us. God has our back. God will protect us. God told us to go to this promised land. He'll guide and direct us. If we have to go to war, he'll guide and direct that. And he'll make sure that we get to the point where we can take over and become, we can become the people of this land and inherit this promised land. And because Joshua and Caleb were the only ones that were righteous, Moses said, basically, all right, well, God basically gave the people what they wanted, because the 10 people prevailed over the rest of the house of Israel. And they said, no, we're just going to be weak, and we're going to know we can't do it. God won't, protect us. And they just were faithless in many ways. And so I just was reading that, and I thought to myself, how does that relate to our day? And how does that relate to the things that we're going through right now in the world, and how we have what might be considered giants in the political leadership right now that are daunting? And how often do we, the people, we as regular citizens, kind of have that faith to know, hey, wait a minute, something's not right here, and we need to be stepping up. We need to stop this attitude of, well, let's just let them take care of it, and instead we need to step back and say, wait a minute, this country was founded on we the people. The people were sovereign. The states were sovereign. They told the federal government what to do. Now it's getting to the point where, oh, well, we'll just do whatever you tell us. And so that parallel in my mind, as I was reading the children of Israel, as they were not being faithful to God's real true purpose for them to be in a place or a position of liberty and freedom, they were willing to take a 40-year detour and be stuck in all kinds of problems because of that. I don't want to have our country be in a 40-year detour. I want to have us be in freedom. I want to have us be liberty. And you don't get there unless you are self-reliant, that you educate. We all need to know what's going on, the founding paperwork. We need to know what's happened with the founding fathers. We need to have that knowledge. We need to be motivated, and then we need to act on it. We need to go out and do things. And so that just really hit me this last week as I was reading through my scriptures. And so I just wanted to share that, because that really relates to what's going on in the world right now. We have some faith obstacles that we need to overcome as a people.
It's funny, we actually had that conversation with my daughter, she's 4, about that story. And what's interesting is 10 of the tribes wandered in the wilderness. 2 of the tribes did not. They went in and inherited the land. So it's crazy to me that there's a small percentage of people that will just be fearful and back off. I mean, a large percentage that will be fearful and back off. And the ones that will have faith, the Lord will take you and he'll guide you and he'll put you where you need to be safe. And as you listen, as you're trying to prepare for your family, as you're trying to do the things you need to do with work and school and rehearsals and everything else that's going on in life, try to take those pauses and listen and be still and be present. And those will be the most valuable times for your family and learning and understanding God's plan for you. We all want to be in tune with God every day. We all want to have that direct relationship with our Savior. And to do that, it requires effort on our part. And what's funny is you put that time and effort in, and it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled back for you.
Yeah.
So go start. And if you're already started, go help somebody else start. Get the world prepared. There's still time. It's not too late. Do what you can while you can. And remember, we're in this with you. You're not alone. There are so many people. You've got neighbors that you don't even realize are doing the same thing, and they have the same concerns. Go get to know your neighbors. And as you get comfortable, find out what their needs are and see what you can do to help each other, because they've got skills and you've got skills. And together we can all have sweet, sweet skills. Guys, we've been fortunate to be with you. Remember, we're brought to you by the Be Prepared Expo, coming at the end of April, 22nd and 23rd at the Mountain America, I almost said Southtown, Mountain America Expo Center in Sandy, Utah. Tickets at bepreparedexpo.com for $10 at the door, or if you buy online early, $8, guys, save some money. Get your families down there. They have a family 4-pack. Kids under 12 are free. Follow them at Be Prepared Expo on the Facebook, on the Twitter, on the Instagram, on the YouTube. So, and of course, we're Prepper Talk Radio. What do we love? We love God. We love our family. We love our country, and we love our audience. We love you guys. We appreciate you. Stay tuned. We're going to have some more stuff next week, and hit us up in the week. In the meantime, in the groups, we're here.
Thanks, Kotzing. Thanks, Paris.
Yeah. Take care, guys.
Have an awesome night.